Yes, there he is. Forever.
Recording in progress.
Okay.
Yes,
Happy
I
New
I am actually here.
Happy New Year. All
Well,
right.
good morning and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
However, before I can be too happy about the new year, I have to remember all of my friends out there in Los Angeles who are not
Oh yes.
having a
Wow.
really happy experience right now. However,
Mhm.
as I mentioned in a couple of Facebook posts during the week, that personally I have lived through those fires, I have lived through their earthquakes, I have lived through whiteouts in Maine and tornadoes in the Midwest and hurricanes here in Florida. And I can only offer that you will only grow stronger from this.
Hmm.
And the rebuilding starts mentally and physically right now.
Right now. Hmm.
So, my
Yes.
thoughts are with you. And I know it doesn't look fun today when you're up to your ankles in ashes. It is not pretty. There are better days ahead.
Hmm.
All right. Um,
Thank you. Thank you for that prayer.
so, as you've already read, if you looked at the blurb for this week, 19th century American author Washington Irving's classic, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, is best recognized as a Halloween season story, but mostly because it employs a pumpkin and as a key character, but also because it appeals to our fascination with stories of the supernatural. Now, I'm evoking it here as a New Year's lesson when most of our sinners like to review the basics of our teachings, because when we dig a little deeper, we discover Irving's hand penned a captivating avatar for spirit, humanity, and the nature of their relationship. And it's a lot more fun than the Science of Mind textbook, I assure you. So, the town of Sleepy Hollow is introduced by Washington Irving in his classic tale as a melancholy place steeped in tradition where superstition holds more than nominal sway. Yet, in its rearward viewing persona, this backwater hamlet appeals to the writer as a place of refuge. In a place in time unfettered by even the modest technological advances of its era. The night darkness here is pierced only by the trivial light cast by lamp or candle escaping through an infrequent window. A place where limited knowledge frees the imagination to populate one's thoughts with envisioned facts where actual information is either lacking or inconvenient. The protagonist of our narrative, Ichabod Crane, is described as a seemingly ungainly fellow, unique in appearance, being a generous portrayal. Quick to dispense harsh discipline on his subordinates, a characteristic common among those whose self-esteem teeters on non-existent, Crane nonetheless manages through prudent politicking to integrate himself to this naive little community. Bolstered mostly by people's respect for his position, Crane imagines himself a bit more charming than his accomplishments support. He has, you see, allowed his fascination with witchcraft and tales of the supernatural to supplant reasoned thoughtfulness and prudent introspection. Now, Crane's itinerant lifestyle fueled his predisposition toward the unnatural. Long evenings swapping mystical horror stories with the locals, each vying to top the other with particulars more dastardly and gruesome than the other. his thoughts, when left alone with them, defaulted to his worst imaginings, where others might pass unimpressed. Ichabod, you see, is you and me. A human being immersed in our human world with all of its distractions, deceptions, lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my. Ichabod is trapped in the full flowing current of the community's common consciousness. He focuses on the sensational and the macabre, finding like-minded enthusiasts who reinforce his peculiarities, sending him deeper and deeper into the realm of unreasonable reality. Crane's misinterpretation of his stature in the community has convinced him of his righteousness and infallibility. He has been groomed and nurtured, shaped and smoothed into the perfect patsy. A victim of his own making, with a little help from his friends. Thus, poised on the precipice with balance in doubt, Ichabod is, in Irving's words, crossed by a being that causes more perplexity to mortal man than ghosts, goblins, and the whole race of witches put together. And that was a woman. You see, the community of farmers' wives, students' mothers, and choir matrons who populated his transient evenings all had one important thing in common. They were one or some combination of unattractive, uninterested, or unavailable. Katrina Van Tassel was none of these. Katrina Van Tassel was the vision of life itself. Easy on the eye to behold, a little mischievous and naughty, but more importantly to Ichabod, Katrina was the only child and the heir to her family's enviable wealth. In the story of our lives, we seldom make good witnesses. Ego and memory intertwine. Facts fall away, their void filled by fabrications more aligned with our image of ourselves than our true reflection. Where we see a knight in shining armor charging forth on a mighty steed, others encounter nothing more than a tattered scarecrow astride an ill-tempered, old, half-blind, borrowed plow horse. Our power to choose creates a picture our egos find more appealing. In Ichabod's mind, he alone shone bright in Katrina's eyes, but those with clearer vision knew that others too sought the favors of her heart, if not her father's purse. Brom Bones stood out as a likely contender, a lad whose reputation as a prankster and ruffian was well earned and often demonstrated. Brom Bones personifies the very image of God, or spirit if you prefer. You see, Brom Bones lives free of self-reflection. He lives free of self-judgment, and he has no inhibitions or social filters. Brom Bones takes whatever stimuli is presented at face value and acts or reacts accordingly. Spirit, too, is immune to the opinions of others, never suffers from analysis paralysis, never hesitates to act decisively, and never asks for clarification of a belief or for additional information. As our story unfolds to its final act, these assorted elements intertwine before erupting into anticipated but nonetheless unexpected conclusions. The peaceful hamlet, the refuge lost in time, morphs into a hellscape whose every snapping twig, scampering rabbit, hooting owl, and twisted tree limb adds to the terror building in Ichabod's tortured imagination. In our own stories, we are not immune to blowing things out of proportion, letting our imagination see ghosts where a tattered curtain wafts in a breeze, or hearing banshees scream in the trace of a rusting hinge. Our ghosts and banshees may more frequently be beliefs that we have enshrined. Those offhanded comments from a friend or coworker who never intended harm or have any idea of their contribution to our drama. Our test scores, relationship experiences, our failures to launch catalog we use to pass judgment on every effort to hone our lives. Ideas, mostly false or at best viewed through opaque lenses, who have taken up residency in our minds, influencing our experiences uncredited or unrecognized. The Sleepy Hollow community reflects our common consciousness, eager to reinforce popular beliefs, assigning value, deserved or not, on title and position, empowering traditions whose roots are lost in time, and acceptable judgments, lots of judgments regarding persons and personalities. We all shoulder this cross. Our families, friends, and communities shape our basic personas, our sense of right and wrong. Our vision of strength or weakness is all influenced by the common consciousness we are born into. Katrina Van Tassel is the hurricane who blows into everyone's life at one time or another. A hurricane is nothing more than an atmospheric agitation whose occurrence is not only natural, but necessary in the bigger picture. It mixes things up, keeping our planet from becoming too hot or too cold. It only becomes problematic when we sail our ship into it or build our home in its path. Like the offending hurricane, Katrina Van Tassel exists independent of the drama her appearance so innocently provoked. Ichabod, when introduced, represents common humanity. In short, a hot mess. But let's stick a pin in his review and circle back to that in a few minutes. Brom Bones has also been discussed, but in this final appearance, the image of God is exemplified. A powerful warrior, sturdily mounted, commanding in its silence. The figure of a Hessian cavalryman, resurrected roguishly by Brom Bones, plays this entire scene with no dialogue, only an observing presence, offering neither comment nor command. It is further illustrated by the figure being headless, save for an empty gourd alluding to be the missing melon. As we describe spirit insights of mind, it too is a headless energy. It does not think, has no agenda, does not spend time declaring judgments en masse. There is no there. But its existence is as real as Brom Bones astride his steed. And like the mischievous Brom Bones, spirit is in our experience whatever we choose to make it. Spirit can be our best friend, an ally, a foundation for our best selves. Spirit can also be a harbinger of dread, where we sow fear, doubt, and superstition. Spirit serves it up in generous proportions, fully matured, ripened, spiced, and sautéed. Now we can return to the hapless Ichabod. Found wanting, you see, by his sought-after Katrina Van Tassel, this dejected shell of a man seeks refuge in the saddle of the once mighty horse Gunpowder. Ichabod slinks off into the night on this ill-tempered, one-eyed, borrowed old horse, accompanied only by his thoughts. His thoughts in the common consciousness, whose corrosive contents have eaten away any semblance of the powerful and respected educator, entertainer, and gentleman he has so carefully cultivated in his mind. At this, his most vulnerable moment, Brom Bones intercedes with what to him is an elaborate but harmless prank. Like Spirit, in our most susceptible moments, Brom Bones has brought to Ichabod a totally unpredictable event that, when combined with his current predisposition, shatters Crane's link to the common consciousness, shatters his self-image, and shatters his foundational system of beliefs. Like so many of us, Ichabod is terrified when confronted by his spiritual awakening. He spurs old Gunpowder to forgotten glory, running and twisting so violently the reassuring perch of a properly cinched saddle is torn away. Ichabod is left clinging to the neck and mane of a false promise of safety. The bridge and church beyond loom into sight as silhouettes against the night sky. To have our beliefs ripped away, our eyes suddenly filled with light where only darkness has proceeded, is not always approached with open arms. We devote our lifetimes to developing our story, concocting justifications for our flaws, misdeeds, and delusions. We grow comfortable in our saddle, and more so as we cinch it down with each illusion blended into our simmering stew. Spirit can come crashing into our lives unexpectedly and unwelcome. Our egos are threatened, pale and paltry little things that they are. Puffed up with fictions, egos bluster and threaten because they know the truth. They are only hollow shells, like the pumpkin that will shatter at first blow. We run, seek shelter, and deny the truth revealing before us. We cling to our past, our illustrious fiction, as we would cling to life itself, until the pain of holding on exceeds the pain of letting go. The Ichabod known to Sleepy Hollow was dead. Disappeared in the night with the only clue of his passing, the pitiful horse found saddleless the next morning, innocently munching the grass at the gate of his master's home. The forest and river banks were searched and scoured to no avail. Ichabod was gone. And in the telling of this sorrowful tale, the story ends here where the mystery begins. But Ichabod represents humankind, Brom Bones' spirit, collectively the image of God. And we know progress or awakening is only possible when the before we were is allowed to die, making room for the now we are becoming. Freed in this most confronting moment from the entirety of his past, Ichabod, it was eventually learned, relocated to parts unknown, reinvented himself, and lived for all intents and purposes a happy and successful life. He took the steps required. He walked the walk and earned the respect he had previously taken for granted, becoming a country gentleman he had imagined himself to be. With his very soul perceived to be in danger, safety seemingly forever just out of reach, Ichabod had in that fateful second seen the light, changed his thinking, let go of the binding ties he had held so tightly, and allowed Spirit to create for him the life he had always envisioned for himself. But back in Sleepy Hollow, the mystery made for a better story. And for Ichabod, it made no matter. So the ghostly Hessian rides to this day in the lore of the land, his steed breathing fire, and his head in his hand. Thank you for your attention.
His head in his hand. Thank you so much, Reverend Glenn. Wow.